So this weekend, I was on the train headed to see a friend on the 2 train headed to the Bronx, the melting pot of New York City. You've got all sorts of cultures, but I'll make this story very short because I have another story to tell you that relates to this one. So I'm on this train, and a middle-aged white man who seemed like maybe he had too much alcohol or too much drugs and alcohol earlier that day, because this was in the middle of the afternoon, falls forward on his seat and just passes out. And when I mean passing out, I mean it was in a way, his body was so contorted that his head was so dug into his lap that you could probably see his entire head past his thighs. It seemed like his head was closer to his member. You know, I'm just giving you some sort of illustration to tell you that it looked like it might have been a bit more than just alcohol. It was one of those pretzel-like shapes that people take on when their bodies have gone completely flaccid and they are down and out. So after this happens, you have this black woman who, you know, she starts laughing. You have some other people on the train who start laughing, and it's a mixture. It's a mixture of black and Latino. Then all of a sudden, the woman says something that is incredibly ignorant, and it was just so, like, how could you possibly say something like that? And she says, well, you know, if that was a black or a Puerto Rican person that was passed out like this, the cops would have taken him away in a second. Now, there's 2 things that's wrong with that comment. It's wrong because, hey, look, the way that this guy looked, the cops or anyone taking him out of that situation would probably improve the quality of his life, because it doesn't look like he just had a bad day and drank a couple drinks. This looks like something he does very often, and he's going at very hard. Maybe he should check himself into a facility. So number 1, that's probably not a bad thing for him. And number 2, there's no way that a police officer could possibly see any of this if all we're going to do is sit around and judge this individual. Police officers don't, they don't fucking have telekinesis. They don't know when someone's in need of help or some shit. You have to point it out. You can't just sit there and berate the person who's passed out. So, and I, of course, can't talk because I was just standing there not doing anything about the situation. I wasn't offering any help to this man. So, that lady's apathy really rang true to me as I got off the train. And also, I was a bit upset with myself that I really didn't do anything about the situation. So you fast forward to later that night when I'm going home after leaving my friend's house. I get on that very same 2 train, and there is a homeless man who's sitting on the train. Now, this may sound like a fucked up comment, and, take it for what it's worth, but I'm comfortable with sitting next to a homeless person as long as they don't smell really bad. If it's a smell that is so overpowering, I can't take it. And, for those of you, for you moral crusaders out there, spare me the bullshit, because you are sitting within close proximity to someone for probably 30 to 45 minutes. I would think that breathing is a big deal. It sort of always is. So when the air that you're breathing in, smells like, it smells like shit, I think it's time to move. But this guy, he didn't, he didn't smell like anything. He was just sitting there. So I sat across from him, and like an idiot, I'm playing Subway Surfers. He just looks like your standard homeless person. He's got a bag with pair of shades, and he's just sleeping on his bag. Couple stops later, another homeless man comes into the train, and he sits about 3 feet to my left. I take a look at this guy. He has no bag, and he has no shoes. His feet look like they've been bare for a great number of weeks, maybe a couple months. I'm not quite sure. So all of a sudden, I had to sort of step back in amazement of, what I at least interpreted as a message that was being painted right in front of my eyes. And there was that quote that I didn't know in my head, and I didn't know where it had originated from. And many people, when you don't know where a quote is from, you tend to think, oh, it's probably from the Bible. But as I've looked it up online, I found that it's just one of those things that they just say is a saying, which I guess, they can't, it's an anonymous quote. So they just say, oh, it's a saying. And I thought about the quote, and it goes a little something like, I cried because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. Now, that quote was ruminating in my head, even though I didn't know the actual wording of it. But, I got the basic grasp of it, there's always somebody doing worse than you, when you're pitying yourself for whatever reason. Because obviously you had this homeless man who was sitting there, and for all those stops, there were a great number of people on this train. And if they looked around, they would say, that's the homeless guy. He's in pretty bad shape. Not where you would aspire to be in life, is to not have a place to live, a shelter. Until this other guy came, and he doesn't even have anything on his feet. So this thought is running through my head, and I'm obsessing, and the voice inside my head that wants to do so much good, and I want to be this great person that offers this guy some help because I didn't offer help to the man who was passed out earlier in the day. And then I remembered that in my book bag, I have a pair of shoes that I don't wear anymore for work. So I just keep them in my bag for whatever reason. So I slide over to the guy without the shoes, and I lean over and I tell him, hey, can I ask you a question? He leans over to me and he says, yeah, but sort of in a reluctant way. And I tell him, I've got these shoes in my bag that I no longer wear. Would you like them? Around the point when I said that I no longer wear, I could see a subtle emergence of a head nod, like no. But I finished the question anyway. Would you like to wear them? And he said no. I stepped back and I said, you sure? And he said yes. After he said yes, I slid back into my original position, and he spat on the floor. Didn't spit in my direction, just very close to one of his bare feet. And I almost felt like when he did that, it was maybe to break the the awkwardness maybe of the situation, to break that tension, or maybe it was just his pride. I spit on the ground. I don't need your help for whatever reason. So I slide back, enjoy the rest of my ride, and I go home. But of course, what I'm thinking about is, the guy on the train earlier in the day who was passed out. What would he have done had I offered him help? Has someone ever offered him help in that situation? You would always assume that if you could offer some shoes to your barefoot neighbor, they would gladly take them. But I guess it's the pride of that person that rejects it. Or, am I interpreting it as his pride, or is he totally content with living like that for whatever reason? I have no clue. But you could only hope that whatever characteristic that he showed where he refused to take my shoes, is the same characteristic that will someday get him out of that situation. Now, the apathy of the woman on the train is, I've always felt like it is still not too far from those who do nothing at all, who offer no help when they see things in public. just like the person who records a fight, just like the person who just stands there and laughs at the fight. We're all pretty much the same. But the problem with the apathy is just to stand there and you see a human being that's in need, and the only thing that you can think of is yourself. The only thing that you're operating out of, it's not out of love, it's just you're operating out of just your ego and your sense of identity. You know, it's like she's the predator and she's scanning the room and she sees me, my race, what's wrong with the world, why people judge me. And she can't see that beyond his ego, beyond him being a white man, middle-aged white man, she can't see that it's just a person who's in need. Or maybe they're not in need because maybe these people refuse help when you offer it to them. But at the end of the day, that's all you could do is just offer your help and continue to offer your help until one day somebody gladly accepts those pairs of shoes. So I think if I learned anything from just that day, it's to take into account past experiences and decide how you want to put your current experiences, how do you want to put it all into practice, how you want to consider all the variables and decide what form of action, if any, that you're going to take at all. Throughout that day, I didn't have this constant thought of, oh my God, I should have helped that man who was passed out on the train. I let it go after about 5 minutes after I had gotten off. Only then that thought was just punching me in the head when the second homeless guy had gotten on the train with no shoes. It's just one of those things that happen that causes you to have one of those funny thoughts like, is this life real or is life just a form of fiction? But nonetheless, a bit of a lesson learned, even if I'm not quite sure what that lesson is. Maybe in hindsight, I'll connect the dots and put them together. I hope I connected some dots for you. Good day.